Yo, what is up, boys? We are on episode fucking 10 of the IRL quest, bro. And it's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've gone this consistent for this long. But you know what? It's a special episode. We got the double digits. We did what we had to do. We're only coming up from here. And I wanted to drop this real quick to our special guest, first ever guest we've had on the fucking pod, bro. His name, he goes by a couple. He goes by Jonah. He goes by Jonathan. He goes by Big Dick Little Pete. All the above. We got Jonathan Hernandez on for the show.
Yo, special
what
guest.
up, Roy? How you doing, bro?
I'm doing pretty solid, man. I've been excited to come out here, ready to contribute. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah, bro. It's the first time we have a special guest on the show, and I think it's gonna be really interesting, bro. Just having a third person just fucking saying their piece, so I don't have to listen to your damn voice all the time, bro.
You thought, bro. My voice is just music to your ears, bro.
Well, what's up, Jonah? Why don't you tell the people a little bit about who you are and stuff like that, so we can kind of get an idea.
Me, I'm just some guy, currently on a break in college, you know what I'm saying? Just working out a lot in boxing, just getting back out there, I'm single, newly single, just getting used to the life, man, and making money, saving money, that's just I'm on my grind right now, basically.
Hell yeah, it's all about the cheddar, bro. It's all about the fucking cheddar.
I'm
What's
definitely
up,
a bag chaser.
Me and speaking about
bag chasing, bro.
Me and Leroy had like a fucking 3-hour long text message conversation about that exact topic. And so we're gonna leave that for a whole other episode. But yes, we understand your passion for the grind, bro. We do.
Hell yeah, bro. Some of us have different opinions than others. Hey, it is what it is, bro. We'll talk about it.
Of course. Everyone's entitled to it.
But anyway, so what are we talking about today? Today's episode is on gender dynamics. The relationships, interpersonal relationships between men and women, how we interact, and most importantly, or at least from the subject, from the video title, and men and women are not equal, bro. A lot of people think that men and women, we live in a fucking feminist gender society, and where people think, oh, men and women are equal in every single way. That's just biologically, scientifically untrue, right? And by the way, when we say men, or at least I don't want to speak for anybody on the show, right? I'm just talking about from my perspective right now. When I say men and women are not equal, I don't mean when it comes to rights, the law, etc., pay. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the way we act biologically, things that we prefer, stuff like that we're going to touch into, we're going to get into on the show. But anyways, what do you guys think about it? Give me your honest opinions. No filter, and let's go into it, bro.
Yeah, I'm down, bro. It's a very ballsy title, I guess, little catchphrase you got there that men and women aren't equal. While I do agree with it partially, I do think there's a lot of interesting dynamics that come into play. Because a lot of people will hear that and be like, oh shit, man, this guy, he's gonna be a fucking right winger, bro. He's like, but that's not what you're really trying to say, and I don't think that's what any of us are trying to say here. It's more about like there's some factual differences between men and women. Like for example, one thing off the top of my head is physical capability, right? We touched on this in the previous episodes about like the WNBA versus NBA and how it just. You're not going to have a woman playing in the NBA just because the skill gap is there, right?
Facts.
And so that's like one of the concepts we're going to go into. But more specifically, I'm more interested in talking about like the relationship dynamics. So between like how do most women, like we don't make assumptions here. There's no 100%, right? So take that with a grain of salt. But there's general consistencies between men and women. So like a decent amount of men act this way, a decent amount of women act that way. And it's a consistency that runs true for a general idea, right? A general population. And so I think that's what I'm most interested in talking about today. What about you, Jonah? What are you looking forward to, man?
Well, I'm looking forward to diving into specifically on what both of you said. So at first, Leroy said something, and that caught my attention. Then Eric, you kind of said the same thing, and I'll tell you what it is right now. So Leroy opened up with saying men and women are not equal. Then he went on to explain, so okay, I'm not talking about legal stuff. I'm not talking about pay. Like, we all have equal opportunities, but what he means is we're not equal X, Y, and Z. And then as I was hearing these X, Y, and Z's that he was saying, I was like saying, I don't think equals the appropriate word here. I think what he means to say is, and you tell me if I'm wrong, but men and women are not the same. That they're different, but I don't see, because if you're gonna use equal, there's got to be a platform that you're
A metric.
comparing it to. Yeah, a metric, that you're comparing to is like, oh, equal as in like, oh, women meet these standards while men don't in this instance, and then vice versa on different instances. But that's not what you meant. You just meant that we're just playing different in certain ways.
Right. And so
And then
I
Eric
guess,
said the same thing as well, right after you.
yeah, just to comment on it real quick. The reason why I say the word equal is because that's what the feminists and all these people say, that, oh, we're equality and equal and all that. That's the word that they use. Of course, a better way to say it is we are simply not the same. And so, but when people say equal, they tend to mean not only the things that I listed at the beginning, but also the things that you're saying, right? And so that's why the word equal, I think, is more appropriate in that sort of setting. But of course, a better, more fundamental explanation is we simply are not the same in terms of the things that we like, the things that we do, how we're predisposed to certain actions, behaviors, you know, biology, all sorts of things, right? Through studies and everything that has been conducted. But go ahead, continue, finish your point that you were trying to say.
I mean, that's where I've stopped now, just based off of the information you give. Like, for example, I actually I'll ask you, because you said, because so you're saying, okay, on these feminists they'll say, we're equal here, but we're not. Can you like just bring out like a specific item of conversation like that they say they're equal, but you
Well,
don't
here,
believe so?
so here's one of the one that immediately comes to mind, right? That I think is um, not as pervasive, I would say, as it was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, but certainly still a subject of conversation. Um, when we talk about things like the pay gap, like the gender pay gap, right? That women make 80 cents on the dollar. That has been debunked on so many times on so many different fronts, and yet it's still a narrative that is spoken about today as if it's a problem. When reality, if you look at the gender pay gap, right, and that study that was conducted that showed the 77, 80 cents on the dollar or whatever, you guys are aware of what I'm talking about, just so we have the context.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
Yeah, so for everyone who's not aware, there was a study conducted. I'm not sure who conducted the study, but this is a major talking point, right? Where people say, well, there's a problem because women earn 80 cents on the dollar that men earn, right? So it should be, we do the same job. It should be equal pay for equal work. The problem is that in that study, it didn't take into account many, many different factors. Right? It took overall income versus, you know, looking at things such as hours worked, amount of leave, uh, experience, etc. There is no situation, right, that I've seen or that I've read about or I've heard where a man and a woman are in the exact same scenario, but because a man is a man, right? Because he's got a fucking dick and nuts, he's paid more money. That doesn't make any sense to me. And just if we even think about it logically speaking, from a business owner perspective, if why would I, as a business owner, hire men when I can hire women at a 20% reduced cost? I'm gonna make so much more bread. I'd never hire another man again. So you see what I'm saying? So it's just stuff like that, right? That's one example. Another example is, from the things that have been going on recently, the whole, transgender movement, when it comes to sports, female athletes competing with biological male athletes who then convert to being female. There's so many advantages there that we touched about. We did a whole podcast episode on that is another narrative that men and women are not equal. Also, when it comes to hormonal panels, that has to do with the biology, but also when it comes to personality, men tend to be more less agreeable, shall we say, than women. They tend to argue for bigger salaries. Women, of course, tend to be much more agreeable. In other words, they try and go with the flow. They're much more chill, relaxed when it comes to stuff like that. They try to rock the boat, whatever. And so these are just certain things that I think are main subjects when it comes to men and women are not equal. What's your opinion on that? Eric and Jonah, whichever one of you wants to chime in.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go first. It's a very interesting topic, bro, and you hit a lot of different points that I do agree with and some I don't agree with. So the whole pay gap. Let's talk about the first thing, right? 80 cents to the dollar. That's a very good point you made about the whole. They're taking into account overall population of males working versus overall population of women working, and then just averaging that out. I think a better indicator would have been what you described. Pretty much, take the same exact job, doing the same exact responsibilities, and see what the pay scale is there relative men to women. However, even this is going to be a controversial statement. Embrace for impact, but there's certain jobs where I don't think men and women should be paid equal. I just don't. I think there's like super labor intensive jobs where on average men are going to be more physically fit. Maybe you could compensate that with other like side jobs. So like most retail jobs, for example, you're going to have like, let's say you're the grocer, right? You're the cashier. That's going to be your main job. But usually when you're working that type of job, you're going to have other jobs to do, little small tasks to do throughout the day. Maybe that's a way to make the salaries comparable. But if you're working like in a warehouse and your job is to lift up heavy boxes, on average, men are going to be stronger and they're going to be more durable and have more endurance and be able to lift for a longer period of time. And I think at that point, who's doing the better job, right? Who's should be compensated more if we're thinking about this from a capitalistic point of view. And I think that applies to some jobs. I don't think that applies to all jobs. I think there are certain jobs where I think it does hold true where women should be being paid more, and they're not getting paid as much. I think the argument that like if you're comparing CEOs to see like CEOs, for example, is a male dominated position. I mean, there has been more females coming around recently that have become CEOs, but that's going to skew the numbers as well, right? Because CEOs get paid millions upon millions of dollars. Take that into an average, and it's going to show a discrepancy.
Right.
I guess another point I would like to make, and this is something I want Jonah to answer because I think Jonah is going to have a very tough time answering it. Is what's your belief on unequalness between men and women when it comes to the same job, such as a warehouse worker? Should they be being paid the same? If they should, why? If not, why?
Uh, if I were the hiring manager or if I were the supervisor of a warehouse and I
Mm-hmm.
was hiring people, let's say I'm in need of people and I've got applicants from men and I've got applicants from women, I'm not going to look so much for the gender. I'm just going to look for what are you capable of. If I have this wimpy dude and I've got this woman who works out every day and
Of
she's got the
course.
endurance and why am I going to pay her less just because she's a woman? I wouldn't base pay off of gender. I'd base pay off of efficiency at your job. Just plain
Yeah.
and simple. Has nothing to do with whether you have a pussy or a dick. Like, can you carry this box for fucking 8 hours? Okay,
That makes
you're
perfect
hired.
sense.
It,
That makes
it
perfect
does.
sense.
It does. But hold on. So, but we can make general like assumptions, right? Can we make an assumption that men on average are going to be stronger than women?
We don't have
Sure.
to, that's facts.
All right.
That's
So let's make that assumption. I know some people are snowflakes and all that. So I just want to get all of us in a row right here agreeing on that. So does that create gender diversity when it comes to hiring then? Because realistically, that's what it's going to cause,
Well, I
right?
mean, I don't care. I don't care about the diversification of the job. If I'm the one who's hiring and I know that I'm not excluding people based off of whether it's the race or religion or the fucking gender. I know I'm not fucking doing that. I know I'm just choosing whoever applies and whoever fits the role better. That's it. Has nothing
Yeah.
to do with anything
The
else.
the problem is, bro, and I'm gonna let Leroy jump in right after this. The problem is, bro, is that there are companies, and I know because I've seen it myself, I've heard about it in the news, that they fill certain positions based on your race and based on your sex. So they want to be more diverse in terms of like, dude, if it's 100% white people working at that company, they're gonna get flamed. Like straight up, they're gonna get flamed. Even if they're using the mentality you're using and they're like strategically correct, they're going to get shit on because they're not hiring women or they're not hiring Spanish or whatever it is, right? So that does play a part. And I think those two statements are conflicting. Leroy, what do you think about that, bro?
Well, you guys said two things. I think what you guys are just to kind of maybe bring together what you guys two are saying. One point that you guys are making is outcomes, as opposed to looking at outcomes, whether or not you can lift the box, whether or not you can, do the actual job versus what your gender is, right? That makes a lot of sense. The outcomes, right? And the second thing you're talking about is diversity quotas. Diversity quotas are facts. That's what affirmative action is when it comes to schools, workplace. You can see it in pretty much any corporate structure. There is push for inclusivity, and we have a diverse workplace. As opposed to who's the best person for the job. What's maybe not as not saying that that's not important, but also we need to consider who's the best person for the job, but also how can we fit in these numbers of, we have a lot of females on our staff. We have a lot of Asian Americans on our staff. We have a lot of African Americans on our staff. We have Hispanics. So we're a diverse culture, right? Corporate society and corporate culture, that's what they push. I even see it in my own job. A lot of that, there's like little templates and posters everywhere, like, oh, we're an inclusive workplace to work at. We have all these things. That's for sure part of the narrative. I think what's more interesting is the first point, which is outcomes. When we talk about outcomes, things like, can she lift the box and do the job? That makes perfect sense to me. The better question, I think, is, are people even subscribing to these jobs? Do people even want these jobs? Like what you were saying earlier, Eric, about, that CEOs are mostly a male-dominated position. Is that because there's, a patriarchal society that's preventing women from reaching that? Or is it because, what I think is more likely, men on average tend to be more willing to sacrifice other areas of their life in order to pursue an 80, 90-hour work week for 20 years to reach those sorts of positions. Men are more driven when it comes to career success and more ambitious in that front, as opposed to women who tend to value family more, and also their preferences in terms of workplace and even studies. For example, like if you look at STEM fields, which now a bunch more women are going into STEM than traditionally, so that's going to become much more even, or even female dominated at this point. But there was a great experiment done, I think, and I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, where in the Scandinavian countries, they tried to push for more egalitarianism, where basically people are just given the freedom to pick whatever they want, and do whatever careers they want to choose. Mm-hmm. And in that sort of scenario, women even heavier tended to gravitate towards the less paying jobs as opposed to men. Fields like social work, nursing, stuff like that, which, today nursing is different with nursing today, right? But in the past, that's how it tends to be, right? People, on average, and this is, of course, a generalization, and this doesn't apply to every scenario, but women tend to be more interested in people and working with people and interpersonal stuff, careers that have that sort of thing, as opposed to men who tend to be more interested in working with things like engineering, science, math, etc. So if we look at a field like bricklaying or like oil rig working, which are high paying jobs, but they're extremely dangerous, those jobs are like 95% men, right? And that, of course, is going to skew the numbers when you look at a study that does all men versus all women, right? Women also take, maternity leave. They'll be out of the workforce for 3-4 months because they just had a kid. And not saying that that's something that they shouldn't do, or that's something that's bad. Of course, it's good. I would want the person that I'm with to do that. But that's going to skew the numbers, right? So this idea that women make 80 cents on the dollar is just not true when you account for all of those things that we've listed. So by the way, let me look at the chat. I think we have something in the chat. What's going on here? Oh, here we go. We have a regular, Adrian, once again joining the stream. How you doing, bro?
What's up, Adrian? What's going on, bro?
Let's go. It's a little early, bro. We don't tend to be this early, but hey, we had to fit the schedule a little bit, bro. So
of course, accommodate.
Appreciate you joining in as always. So what do you guys think about that? And basically all the stuff that I just said.
Well, I mean, when we first started, you said that in terms of pay, like that's not an issue. That's something that we're equal about. So I'm just confused about like what are you trying to say? Like, is there an argument here? Or
what I'm trying to say is that when people say, men and women are not equal, that's when it comes to pay specifically. We're paid the same when it comes to hour, like salary, or let's say hours per hour, like if you're an hourly worker. There's no difference there unless, and here's where some of the differences come in. It's not because, my point is that discrepancies in pays are not because of gender. They're because, not because of the mere fact of gender, but because of some of the things that come with it, like how men tend to be less agreeable, where they'll argue for a higher salary. In the job interview, when the HR person hits you up and is like, "Hey, we're gonna offer you this position at $30 an hour," on a balance of probability across the population, not on an individual case by case basis, it might differ, but on the population level, men tend to be more like, "Hey, no, actually, give me 31, give me 32." When women tend to be more like, "Hey, no, that's fine, I accept that." You know what I mean? Men tend to argue for more. Men also work more hours. That's what I'm saying when it comes to pay and gender. But what I'm saying is not the case. Is that same pace, like same work, whatever. All things being equal, because one person has a penis and the other has a vagina, there's a pay gap there, which is the message, the narrative that people tend to push, right? So that's what I'm saying when it comes to pay specifically.
Yeah, I guess I'll throw a little wrench in your cog of a machine, right?
Go ahead, bro.
I don't think it has to be one or the other. So you mentioned how it's like there's no difference, there's no imbalance because of being a woman versus a male. I do think there's an imbalance. I think sexism exists in the work. Even like playing video games, bro. I don't think you fully realize how bad it is, bro. Like I was recently playing, a good friend of ours, Brenda. We were playing League of Legends last night, and bro, she got like fucking harassed, bro. And I started asking her, like, does this happen often? Like when you're playing video games, right? Like, and she's like, pretty much happens like every other game. I'll be harassed because I have a feminine looking name, and guys will literally just be a fucking meme, bro. There's sexism in the workplace. It's been found in like Riot Games, for example. And nothing like a lot of these companies have it, right? I'm not trying to target one specific company. All these companies have it realistically, and it occurs because it exists, right? And it's not unique to one company, or it's an idea that if there's sexism, there's going to be an imbalance in the workplace. There's going to be preferences. There's going to be, and I think that it's a combination of both. I think obviously the scale of the 80 cents to the dollar isn't exactly right, but I mean, I've just heard from too many different females, like friends of mine, that there is a huge imbalance there. That's getting better from what I've heard, based on like, especially with cancel culture. One of the good things about cancel culture is you're able to get this information out, and you're able to call people out. Accountability is huge now, and I think that's applying for these issues that we're describing.
That makes sense what you're saying. What I would say to that in response is, I'm not suggesting that sexism doesn't exist in the same way that I wouldn't suggest that racism or any other ism doesn't exist. My question becomes, when it comes to outcomes and how we could measurably define these things, is it, does it not just exist in the ether, or can we demonstrably identify them? Because if we can, then we should of course target that and stomp it out, because that's not good. But what I don't think is helpful is when we just define it as like a general, this thing exists, and use it as a way to justify, potentially bad interventions, right? If there's a case where literally someone is being sexist and we can identify it, like you're being discriminated against because on the sole fact that you're a woman, and we can identify that, or if you're a man, for example, then of course we should target that and intervene. But on a systemic wide level, I don't think it's useful, because that can be used to justify things that are not necessary.
What things specifically are you referencing?
Legislation to, passing laws to potentially fix an issue that isn't really we can really define.
Like what?
Like when it comes to these gender pay or whatever, the biggest example I can think of, the most clear demonstrable example is affirmative action. Maybe not just exactly when it comes to pay, but when it comes to school admissions. A lot of these schools, if it was just based on merit, they're like the idea of affirmative action is literally a racist idea if you think about it, because it says that we're going to give you preferential treatment based on your race. That's literally what affirmative action is, right? We're going to give you more. Of course, it's spun as we're going to give more opportunities to people of lower socioeconomic, classes where they had less opportunities. So we're going to help them out. We'll give them a little push. Well, what that ends up doing is that other people tend to have to compete within their race more with each other as opposed to get into the same schools, where it's not just a matter of objective measurement like an SAT score or like a grade. Now it also becomes, if you're Hispanic, and but you scored slightly less, let's say 100 or 200 points less on the SAT, just rough numbers. I don't know if this is exact measurement. You might get into the school as opposed to an Asian who scored 200 above you, but because there's already hella Asians, we're trying to get more diversity. Therefore, we're going to give the spot to you as opposed to the guy who objectively did better than you when it comes to all these measurements, right? Mm-hmm. So, and of course, I'm not arguing whether or not that is a positive good, positive bad. It's just observationally, right? And before we continue, actually, we have an interesting comment. I don't know who NL is, but welcome to the stream. Thanks for watching in. Do you think if women weren't encouraged traditionally / historically to stay at home and play the part of the caregivers in our culture, they would be more willing to work other jobs like on oil rigs? Bro, first of all, thanks you, NL, for the comment.
Appreciate it, man.
Here's the thing, man. Hold
on, Leroy. Let's switch this up, bro. So for this answer, let's do let's go ahead and let Jonah answer first, and then we'll counterpoint Jonah's point of view. Okay.
All right, go ahead, Jonah.
Let me go ahead and read that one more time. So, do you think if women were encouraged traditionally / historically to stay at home, they weren't encouraged to stay at home and play the part of the caregivers in our culture, they would be more willing to work other jobs like on oil rigs? Well, to that one, we could actually look back in history. So yes, for example, for a long time in human history, women and men, but we're talking about women here specifically, women have been encouraged to do a certain thing. Men as well. We're either hunting, we're either fighting the wars back in the day when women weren't really part of a major military conflicts. But then we go back to the 50s, women are still in the kitchen, for lack of a better term. But nowadays, even into the 70s, 80s, there's more of a revival, more of an openness into women like trying shit that they want to do. It's like, no, I'm not gonna I don't want to have a kid at fucking 22. Like I want to go do this. I want to join the military. Now we've got women. So I think right now we're in an age. I mean, it started way before now, before we were born, but we're in an age where we are seeing women on oil rigs already. So I think that in itself kind of answers that question. Yes, if women weren't pushed in a certain direction, they would go their own directions, just as we see them today.
That's an interesting point. I want to push back a little bit, bro. And the reason why I want to push back is because Leroy made a very good point. I forgot which country he mentioned, but Scandinavian countries actually implemented that, and they gravitated more towards those caretaker, those social worker type jobs. And I haven't done the research myself to back that claim up, but if it's true, then that might well be the case, where like even if they have the opportunity, even if they're pushed towards something, like I said, I think there's generalities between men and women. I think men, for example, are like a lot more competitive on average. Like more men like sports on average than women. More like guys, dude, just think of like kids, right? Because I don't like to get in the weeds about adults and their mannerisms. I think the best way to study like gender dynamics is through childhood, because they're not preemptively thinking. They have no like cognitive bias when it comes to a certain like point of view. It's just who they are, right?
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just saying they may have the biases of what the parents brought onto their kids. Because if you meet a kid, they're like exact copies of their parents, like especially if they're young.
Sure, yeah, and that also goes for religion and policy. But there's kids who don't even have parents, and there's kids who are born in foster care, and you'll still see a lot of the same tendencies, right? You could argue that like if we didn't have our social media presence that pushes these type of things, that would be another topic like or situation where we could tackle. But generally, boys on average like to fight. You don't really see many girls play fighting with each other. That to me is a competitive nature, and we're more physical as men versus women, right? Um, I do think that if it was more mainstream, right? Because it's only recently, like you said, the 80s, 90s, I would say even later than that, it's really become more mainstream where we do see women in different positions than normal. But I don't think it would go to 50-50. I don't think it'll get to the point where like 50% of women are CEOs and 50% of men are CEOs. Just because I think Leroy holds some truth here with the whole like women aren't pushing for these 80 to 100-hour weeks on average. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule. I don't want to make generalizations.
There definitely are. I know personally a female CEO. Like back when I used to work at a different hospital, the CEO was a woman, and she was the leader of the entire organization, right?
Of
So there are
course.
people that do these jobs.
In my previous job at Sunrun, there was a female CEO. So obviously there's people, there's women holding these positions, right? But I don't think it's going to skew back to 50-50. I think there's always going to be a preference because genetically and like biologically over generations of generations, we have created these tendencies, and we've developed into these types of people. And I think, for example, most men, if we took a population of like 1 million women versus 1 million men, I think on average more men will be interested in sports and competing on a like high level than women would. And I think that sort of answers the question. What's your opinion on it, Leroy?
Well, NL, to answer your question, I think that first off, I think it's already been tried. What you're saying, what you're suggesting, um, I think that with the example of the Scandinavian countries, they weren't encouraged, and yet, even on a level of not being encouraged, they still went back to those sort of positions, right? They still chose to do the jobs that were traditionally less paying jobs, right? They skewed towards the less dangerous jobs. Now, but just to dive a little bit deeper into that, if we just talk about civilization and human history and just how people are in general, men have a whole lot of testosterone, which is a huge driver into these things that we're talking about, agreeableness and being willing to do these dangerous jobs. In throughout human history, and Jonah touched on this briefly, where men would go out and they would fight the wars, hunt the fucking boars, track down the mammoths, bring the food back, right? And men and the women would be at home back in the camps taking care of the children, right? And I think that just makes sense. And the reason why it has worked for thousands of years on an evolutionary level, because if this was not an advantageous way of organizing ourselves, we would have fucking died off many years ago, right? So the reason that we have survived to today, this is part of the factor, right? Because if you run the experiment over thousands and thousands of years, it's not a fluke at that point where we are simply biologically stronger and more built for those sorts of things that you're talking about. We're willing to take those risks because we understand that these are more dangerous jobs, and traditionally men are seen as more of the expendable commodities, and when it comes to wars and stuff like that, we're the ones who are always out there fucking dying in the front lines. Part of that has to do with biology. Like even when it comes to propagating the species, women only have a certain amount of eggs, and at a certain point they run out and there's no more, right? So their value when it comes to reproducing is much higher than ours because we produce sperm throughout our entire lifetime, right? From of course not when you're a kid, but once you hit puberty and you start producing, you're going to produce until you like the day you die, right? So eggs, ovums are much more expensive, we can say, than sperm are, for example. And so women have always been much more protected when it comes to that. They're also physically weaker. They, on a balance probability, they're going to be physically weaker than men. That is, that's like not even debatable. We can see it in the transgender athlete stuff. So I hope that kind of answers your question, my friend. I don't think that I don't think it's a matter of encouragement. I think this is just how things have played out because of the strengths and weaknesses that we, as a society, as humans, as our species, have between each other, right? So I think that the idea that it's encouragement is sort of like new gender theory stuff that I don't agree with at all.
I think just to wrap it up, we actually have another comment that we have to go through after this. But just to wrap it up, I think time will tell as well, because we have seen a difference between what was happening in the 50s compared to what was happening in the 80s that Jonah referenced to even now, where women are getting more promoted to take these different jobs. And so I think over a longer period of time, we'll get a better understanding of how much of this is fake news and real news, right? Like what percentage of it is because women didn't have the opportunities versus they don't want to take the opportunity. And I think over time we'll figure that out.
I think once again, and I'll thank you for your comment, brother. Appreciate
it, man. Thanks for
appreciate
coming on
weighing in.
and leaving a little comment.
Appreciate it. I guess we can tackle the last comment before we continue on. And it's from Oscar, which is, are women better off today than their grandparents? And if so, why isn't anyone celebrating that? I would ask, what do you mean by better off? In what sense? Because I would say they're better off in some ways and much worse off in others. So I would ask you to, if you're still watching, which I assume you are, go ahead and comment and give us a little clarification on that, and we can come back to it. So anyways, bro, I guess we can segue to not just, workplace dynamics or pay or whatever, but let's
relationships,
talk about
bro.
Relationships, bro. How we associate with each other, bro. Eric, why don't you go ahead? You're the most excited for this part, so why don't you go ahead and lead us off with that?
Well, damn, Oscar already got back to us. But
okay. All right, before we talk, let's just answer Oscar's question. Economically,
yes, I do think they are better off economically. 100%.
100%.
Regardless of what you believe in terms of like Leroy pointed out earlier, like, are they equipped to do the job or do they prefer not to do the job? Whichever point of view you take, the past 50 years, 40 years, 30 years has been great for women on a salary scale.
100%. They make way more bread now than they have way more opportunities now.
And you know what? I think in certain companies and in certain cultures, I think it actually skews the other way, which normally happens, right? Like whenever you're trying to fix, you could overcorrect something. And I think like the same thing you talked about, affirmative action, right? I think the generality wasn't good because at one point there really was a race imbalance. And now it's turned into the other way where people may be passed up on opportunities based on them not being a certain race. And I think that's like an overcorrection, right? In that sense, based on this though, on these like jobs for women, I think there has been some overcorrection where like women may be getting opportunities that they shouldn't be getting just because they are women. And I don't think that's right or wrong. I think that's a good thought process to start with. But like anything, once there's an overcorrection, you got to find the middle ground. And I think that's for the next like 10 or 20 years, we're going to start balancing it out and try to figure it out. A lot of this takes long periods of time. We were just referencing back when we were fucking cavemen, and we're using that as an example, which was thousands upon thousands of years ago. And we're only seeing the results of this over a course of 30, 40 years. So I think it's going to take a little bit more time to see it. But for sure, in the past 20, 30, 40 years, women have 100% benefited on an economic scale.
Do you agree with that, Jonah, or what's your thought on that?
I would say 100% that not just women, but everyone's better off today economically. I feel like, and we could narrow it down to just women. I feel like women nowadays have a lot more modes of becoming independent today than they did, say, 50 years ago, which is around the age of what our grandparents would be on average. Ages vary on our grandparents, I guess. But yeah, no, I think there is a lot more modes of being economically independent. They are getting positions and jobs that they would have struggled or just been plain impossible back in the day. So yeah, I mean, just plain and simple, I think. So actually, and he's got a second part to his comment, which is like, if so, which we've just said yes, why isn't anyone celebrating that? And I thought about that a bit, and I'm saying, okay, these are things, and this is my opinion here coming out. I mean, these are things that they should have had anyway from the beginning. Obviously, it takes time. History isn't perfect. History is brutal. Like shitty things happen, and they get better over time, as they've done in the case of this conversation. And I feel like because these are things that they should have had anyway, and they now have them, their way of celebrating it is getting these jobs, getting that degree, all these things. They don't need to go out and, I mean, they absolutely can. Everyone could do whatever the fuck they want, but they don't need to go out and parade and be like, thank you, because that's just something they should have had from the start. If you get my drift.
Yeah, that's a great point, bro. It's sort of like when we're playing video games, and me and Leroy fall victim to this. We play League of Legends a lot, and we were recently like diamond ranked. And recently we're washed up and we're in like fucking gold gutters, bro. And we'll be playing a game of League and we win the game, and it's like, well, no shit, bro. We're supposed to win the fucking game. We're fucking like we're good players, right?
Right.
That sort of brings it back to that point where it's like this should have been happening. Why should we celebrate for something that we should have been promised or given beforehand?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
What do you think, Leroy?
Cool. I would say in terms of why isn't anyone celebrating that? I think people are celebrating that. I think if you look at the whole movement of like girl empowerment and female power and all that, it is highly celebrated in the media, and especially the mainstream media, or I don't know, the corporate media, that women are making more money now and much more independent, and the whole boss babe movement. If you look at these rappers, and they talk about like Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, that's the message that they push, right? So I think our culture highly celebrates that today. What I would say is, even though that's highly celebrated, is that good in terms of happiness and mental health and stuff like that? Because something that not a lot of people know, or maybe not a lot of people think about, is, what do you guys think is the most unhappy group of people demographic in the United States today? And this is gonna when I heard this, I was like, holy shit. Like, but it made sense when I thought more about it. But what do you guys think right now is the most unhappy group of people in the United States demographically?
Interesting. I sort of know where you're going with this. There's this analogy in Buddhism that like sort of tackles this idea, but first instinctual, I would say low income. Like off the boat, it would be low income, but
Okay.
I don't necessarily think that's true. Only because I've heard this analogy before, where just to go a little bit into the weeds here, they have a caste system back in the day where pretty much you would be like the king or the queen of your land, right? And then there would be like Buddhist monks like right below them, where they have like clarity and like an understanding of the world, and their whole job is to pretty much meditate and preach that, right? And so it's like a hierarchy, right? Like kings and queens up there, monks are very revered under that. Then you have like merchants, right? You have merchants under that. And then you have like regular folk, and then you have like the slaves, like the general caste system, right? And when asked, like they did a study on this,
Well, I
and they
think
were like, "So
did you
who
see
do you
I think the
think
stream just died
is
a little
the
bit. Was that just
I
me? Was
saw
that
that,
just
yeah.
me? Okay, I think we're back though. I don't know.
I saw
I don't know
that.
what that was. That was weird, but I think we're back. Go ahead,
That
Eric.
was
Keep
pretty-
going.
Did we
go
lose
ahead.
anything? Do I have to repeat anything?"
You were saying about merchants and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so let's go back a little bit. The caste system. So pretty much, you had the kings and the queens of the land. You had the monks below that. You had the merchants below that. Then you had regular folk doing everyday jobs, and then you had slaves. That was the general caste system, right?
Okay.
And they did a study back then, and they were like, "Who do you think is the most happy and or the least happy?" And believe it or not, the most happy were the kings and queens that were able to study from the monks. And the idea behind that is because anyone below a certain threshold has never achieved their goals or their dreams. They haven't achieved, like in this example with the caste system, they never really got to be rich or like have this house they wanted or have this land they wanted. And so they always had a little bit of regret, right? The monks understandably also had regret, because even though they had this divine wisdom, they still are human, right? They still have these goals and like aspirations, and they see the kings and the queens, and they're like, damn, they have this castle, they have all this land. And there's going to be some regret in that, where if you're self-reflecting, you're going to think about those things. It's just natural, right? What they found was the happiest were actually the kings and the queens who were able to study meditation and Buddhism through these monks, because they had the clarity to understand that they've achieved everything they wanted, and they hit that point where it's like, well, I got everything I wanted, bro, but I'm still unhappy. Like I still have these problems like everyone else. And when you combine the two, that's when you find out like pure, like that's pretty much like enlightenment, pretty much, is the idea that you first have to reach the goal you're hitting. You have to be broken up by that rule, like, or like you hit that point, you realize, damn, I got everything I wanted, and I'm still not satisfied with life. And then combining that with meditation from the monks and their 20, 30, 40 years of experience, you get that enlightenment and that happiness. So that sort of plays back into like the reverse of like who's the saddest. It could be anyone, in my opinion. It could be anyone that doesn't achieve that. But more specifically, if you're really broke, I could assume the stressors of finances can play a huge factor in happiness.
Okay, and what do you think, Jonah, when it comes to that?
So my initial, what to what Eric said, or what your initial question?
In terms of what do you think is the least happy demographic of people in the United States?
So my initial answer to that, like my inclination to say is, like, oh, homeless people, prisoners, maybe. But then, I mean, you kind of said the question as if like the answer may be surprising. So I mean, like if I were to take a whim, I don't know, maybe like fucking rich people, perhaps. So I don't know. I mean, but let me just stick with the homeless. I'm gonna be like, all right, homeless people are the
All right,
most.
so let me pull this up on the stream right here so we can take a look at it together. I'm going to share a document, or I'm going to share a page so we can
I'm gonna
look
be
at
right
it.
back real quick. You guys dive into that, okay?
Check this out. Meet the least happy people in America. It's based on an Office Pulse survey, right? The least happy demographic of people in the United States is female, 42 years old, unmarried, with no children, household income under 100,000, in a professional position.
Oh, with the professional position.
In other words, the things that we're talking about, there are more and why does this tie into Oscar's question? And when it comes to are women better off today? And this is why I brought this up, right? When it comes to happiness, even though women have much more economic opportunity today than they did many like in the past traditionally, has that helped when it comes to happiness? Are they better off in terms of their well-being, in terms of mental health and feeling fulfillment in their lives? Because is living a good life just good economic opportunity? I would not agree with that. I would say that it's a composite of things, and part of that is happiness, and that's how you feel in and day out. So why is it the case that the least happy demographic of people in the United States are professional women who are unmarried and have no children?
Maybe they're lonely.
Eric, did you catch that?
I get the general gist. So the unhappiest are pretty much females that are in a professional field, unmarried.
The boss babe that chased the career and makes a bunch of money but has no husband and no kids.
Because I personally have the belief that happiness is not tied into what you do professionally in a job. It's tied into like a whole bunch of different factors that are outside of that.
But let's look at the happiest. Look at the happiest, right? Let's compare with the happiest. Here's the profile of the happiest workers. Male, 39 years old, married, household income between 150 and 200, in a senior management position, one young child at home, a wife who works part-time. In other words, why do I bring this up, right? And to answer Oscar's question, men and women are different. We are not the same. We're not equal in these things, right? That's the whole point of the episode. That's the subject that we're talking about. We value different things. Men tend to value money, career, status, etc. Women tend to value family, companionship, children. That's why and a lot of these things show up, and why it's I think the new feminist ideology that's being pushed in our society is bad for women. It's not helping women.
Yo, Leroy, I mean, right before I let Jonah take over, bro, I have one interesting point that's a little bit off key, but I'll bring it back, okay?
Go ahead.
Do you believe in the theory that social classes, when it comes to on an economic scale, are intended to stay that way because it incentivizes certain income brackets to partake in certain like professions? So, for example, if you're really low income, right, you are way more likely to join the military than if you are rich and you have money. And the idea behind that is that when you're broke as fuck and you have no way out of your, like, in my opinion, there's certain ways where it's just really hard to get out of your financial situation. You're way more incentivized to actually join the military, where you're able to save up money. They pay for your housing, and you're able to even get an education out of that afterwards. And so, do you believe in that as an idea? And if so, don't you think this also applies to women as well? Doesn't it seem like we're incentivizing the wrong thing in a way, because we're taking away, like, at baseline, right, biological level, we need women to have kids, like, purely.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'm just trying to understand your question. You're saying that, like, maybe just rephrase your question one more time, because maybe I picked it up wrong. What exactly are you asking?
Can we agree that on an economic scale, we are incentivized as a nation to keep people in certain, like, pegs? So, for example, if we are able to keep everyone at a baseline of, like, of sustainable happiness where everyone's not living paycheck to paycheck, people aren't homeless, we would have less military force.
Are you saying that the system is set up such that we have these sorts of outcomes in order to have more military, have people working these jobs? Is that what you're saying?
I think partially, yes. I don't think it's like 100% of the idea behind it. But now, like, I don't know if you agree with that. I personally do. I think that
I fundamentally disagree with that because I think that these jobs and the way that the system is set up is not because of the government having these plans as to what kind of numbers we want to hit with workers and military people, etc. I think that it's simply market incentives that drive these sorts of decisions. If you don't have any skills, any marketable skills that apply to get you that sort of higher end job, which then will maybe disincentivize you from joining the military, then you're more likely to do that sort of stuff. I think that when it comes like if your best case scenario in your position in your life right now is to join the military when it comes to economic opportunity, that's just I don't think that's a matter of like how we want the system to be. That's a matter of like what are you taking advantage of these opportunities? And the reason I say that is because the reason that these jobs pay what they pay is because they're that's the value that you're bringing to the economy. That's why they'll pay you $19 an hour, because in paying you $19 an hour, what I as a business owner am making from your labor is greater than $19 an hour. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to pay you that 19. And you, as the worker, accept my offer to pay you $19 an hour because you value your time at that price. You think that's a reasonable price for your time. Otherwise, you wouldn't accept it, right? So I think that's why that sort of thing happens. That's the dynamic there. I don't think it's a matter of like,
I think you got to peel the onion a little bit, bro. So you're saying like based on the economic status, you are more incentivized because you have more worth in taking that job, for example, military, right?
yeah.
But we have as a country have the ability to pick up these low income areas. Like for example, let's take like Chicago, right? When you're in a really bad area of Chicago, where there's no funding for schooling, really bad neighborhoods, there's police inactivity, bro, because no one wants to fuck with that area, where we could actually bring that level up. The thing is, it's been around forever, bro. It's still happening. Like it's still a thing where like we are not bringing up certain parts of our United States as a country, because if you think about it deeply, realistically, the people who are, and this is a stat, this is a factual statement at this point, most people who join the military are of low income. And so if you raise the base level, there's a direct correlation to where there will be less people joining the military. Whether you think that's because of the skill set they have, regardless of what you think is the case, I mean, it's a naturally occurring state because we're not fixing the bottom issue. We're not fixing the bottom line. And so, yeah, you could agree that like, yeah, well, I have a company here, right, that has to hire fucking someone for $19 an hour. And if you have a skill set above that, yeah, that's all good and fair. I agree with that. But we're like, as a country, we are positioning certain people to have to take that option because otherwise no one else would. And I don't think it's like a conspiracy theory and like the United States is trying to keep people broke. No, it's not like that. Like it's not like the government's like fucking reigning over us type shit. But there could be laws created, there could be ideas implemented that seem that they should have already been. We're in 2022. And I think there's a little incentive to not fully implement. Like let's get completely off track here. And Jonah, you're gonna have to reel me in right after this.
I don't want to get too lost in the weeds. But
last point. So like let's look at Joe Biden, right? His main platform and like his promotional like point of view when he was running was not only healthcare, but student loans. It is very crazy to me that Biden has not touched on either of those things yet when that was his main platform and there's midterms coming up. But the idea is there's an incentive to wait, right? There's an incentive for him to wait if he is ever going to do this. There's a strategy involved of waiting until midterms come up to where he could alleviate the student loans. And that would be a perfect timing to do that. Because if you do it a year earlier, then it sort of leaves people's minds. And I think there are strategic plans like that in place in the US. And I think it's only smart to do so. But go ahead, Jonah. What do you think about the whole like, oh, we actually have comments popping off. Dude,
yes,
look
we
at
do.
that, bro. But go ahead, Jonah. Go tackle that point before we switch to to the following comments, bro.
So I feel like a major reason why Biden hasn't touched upon the things that he campaigned on is just that it's just the simple fact that ever since he took office, Washington's been on fire. He came out we've had different peaks in COVID. He came in one of those peaks. Thank goodness it's starting to die down now. But then we have Ukraine happening, and that's not slowing down at all. It's very back and forth. They're about to lose a very pivotal piece of real estate, and we're just sending billions of dollars over there. We're always keeping a close eye on that, just for international security reasons. We've got troops at the border with Russia and other countries. That in itself is a whole handful. On top of, like, he's trying to pass these bills, infrastructure bills, and they come out butchered to what he originally planned, just to appease the little votes that he can get, just to get them passed and stuff. So, like, a lot of the things that he wants to do, for example, the things that he campaigned on, maybe, like you said, maybe it's better to wait. Maybe he'll find, we just put in a new judge. The Democrats just put in a new judge. Maybe everything's a strategic choice, I believe, and maybe he's weighing in his the percentages of success. I was like, okay, if I'm gonna spend money and time on trying to pass this, while X, Y, and Z is going on in the background, like what am I gonna tackle first? As the executive head of the country, what am I gonna laser focus in? What's the right time? So I think time, like you said, Eric, is something. It's the answer to that question.
It's a strategy. It's a technique to, like, use your best weapon at the right time. I think that's just what it is when it comes to that. And I think it also applies to the previous point I made.
I want to bring us back to men and women, but my comment just for that, just to close this little sidetrack that we're on, is, the U.S. government has been spending a ton of money combating the war on poverty since Lyndon B. Johnson, right? And so the fact that we're still having this discussion today probably means that it hasn't worked.
There's been a lot of things that haven't worked, bro. Think about Afghanistan.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's just my general, because it's very expansive. We can dive deep into that. So I don't want to get too lost in the weeds, right?
Sure.
But anyway, let's look at some of these comments here before we bring it back. And I'll continue to comment: lack of companionship and relationship with other humans. That's part of it, my friend. I think that's definitely, part of the things that we touched on when it comes to why they're the saddest demographic. Another comment by NL shows that joining the military is an incentive, is a straight influence from Rome. Give the plebs a chance to attain glory for their family name. In today's age, is join the military for financial and benefits and status. I don't think that's as true, brother, because you have so much opportunity today in the United States that, as opposed to a citizen of Rome, the opportunity is so massive, especially with the advent of the internet, that I don't think it kind of holds up equally, right?
It's not equal for sure, but there's still, like, I agree that it's not equal, but I do think there are levels to that still exist.
There might be some truth to that, but I don't think it's on the same level as, like, citizens of Rome back in the day that they were pretty much they lived a shit quality of life compared to what we live today, right? Let's keep on going here. It's the meta for guaranteed manpower reserves.
He was agreeing with my point pretty much.
Yeah, I think he was agreeing with your point.
That keeping the income scale at a certain rate, it's the meta. It's like playing fucking League of Legends, bro, playing Rock League, and these are the best champions and this is the best strategy. You play towards that strategy because other countries are doing it as well, right? You look at China, they're able to militarize, they're able to get their citizens to cultivate towards a goal that we don't have that because we're a different type of government, right? So our way to combat that, one of them, I'm not saying this is 100% the reason, but, like, by keeping people low income, we're recruiting people because exactly going into go ahead, pull up the next comment.
From Oscar right here. Oscar's got a good comment.
That's exactly what I was going to lead to. The fact that you're low income, the military offers not only financial incentives, but also opportunities against the fields that offer higher paying jobs in the sector, like engineering, logistics, and software design dev. 100%, bro. There's a lot of incentive to create, like, wealth off of joining the military, especially since in this day and age, you're probably not going to war, high likelihood. So you are not putting yourself in huge risk by joining the military. but you also get a pension, bro, and you get monthly payments depending on how long you serve. It sets you up for financial success by, instead of climbing your way out when you're in like this ghetto neighborhood and you have to work from this job and you have to do community college and you're barely paying the bills type shit, to just focus up on your skill set and have someone pay for you so you can accrue wealth over time.
Yeah, I agree with those things. The government definitely incentivizes you to join the military by offering all these benefits and programs and stuff like that. And you can transition then to the civilian sector and have a whole bunch of experience and stuff that it would be maybe potentially harder for you to get if you hadn't. So thank you everybody for the comments. Really very engaged audience today. So anyway, let's bring it back, bro. When it comes to relationships,
100%.
let's dive in.
Yes, sir.
Let's dive in. Jonah, why don't you go ahead and lead us off, brother? What do you think about men and women when it comes to relationships? You know, a lot of people today talk about like gender roles and stuff like that. What are your ideas, bro?
For relationships in general, I mean, damn, there's a lot of angles to attack this. There's a lot of conversations that spawn from this. Man, I just think that at least I'll talk from a personal standpoint. I'm no fucking Casanova, dude. I don't have that magic, you know. I do what I can and it works. Sometimes it fails, sometimes just like any other person. But what's it called? No, I just think the whole dynamic between men and women, like, you know, let's say the whole getting to know each other aspect at first, like you're at a bar or wherever the hell you like to hang out, and you see a girl, she's like, damn, she's cute, you know, maybe you're with the homies, like, damn, she's cute, man, like, I want to talk to her. So then at that moment, you got an option: talk to her, don't talk to her. Let's say you choose the talk to her option. Now that opens up a whole new tree, like, what the fuck?
Choose your own adventure, bro.
Yeah, it's a fucking point and click adventure, you know what I'm saying? It's like fucking Skyrim out here. You know, you got to level up that speech skill, basically. So I just think that, like, there's a, like, just, you know, your heart's racing, you go up to it. Obviously there's people who have like relative ease with this because just out of experience, you know. And I don't know, I just think it's interesting. Like, you go on the flip side, you see some other guy, just a stranger that you have no sexual attraction to, you know, and you don't have that feeling. So I just think that whole like hormonal reaction in the body is just interesting. It affects the brain. It affects, like, you second guess what you're gonna think. You have to, you know. So I don't know. What are your experiences with that?
Yeah, what are your experiences with that, Eric?
It's a very interesting. I'm not exactly sure how to round that out because that was a very. I think Jonah was just talking like step by step an interaction between a male and a female, but I think more specifically, I think like dynamics between like a guy and a girl within a relationship. I think there are a lot of general ideas that most men go through. Like, I'll be talking to Leroy and he'll say something that like his girlfriend does. I'm like, bro, I think we have the same girlfriend, bro. Because I've heard this conversation. I've heard this like this exact conversation to a T multiple times. And then I'll hear from other friends and it's like, oh, this, like, my girl wanted me to do this instead of that. I'm like, bro, been there, done that. I get it. And so I think there's a lot of similarities between guys and girls, like what we talked about earlier, how a lot of guys think the same way. There's a lot of girls who think the same way. And for example, I think, bold ass statement, and I want Leroy to tackle this and Jonah, right? So just think about this one statement, okay?
Okay.
Girls in general, obviously that it's not for most, it's just some. A decent amount of girls just want to be taken care of, whether it's financially, emotionally, physically, whatever it is, they want to be taken care of. They are not on the other side of it. In like over a span of, like, let's say 100% of girls, let's say 40%. It's just a number pulling down on my ass, but a decent amount of girls think this way. What do you think, Leroy?
Bro, I think it comes down to two things, right?
Sure.
I think it's guy game versus girl game, right?
Sure.
And I think this applies this is just for like without talking about marriage and raising a family and kids, because that's totally separate, right? I think we're just within our age range because we have the same age
That's all
range,
we can
right?
talk about, right? That's all we know.
It comes down to two things, bro. It's guy game versus girl game. What is girl game? Let's talk about girl game first, because this is the one that's most prevalent. This is the one that they make fucking documentaries on Netflix about, when girls get finessed. Let's talk about girl game for a second, bro. The girl game is to extract as many resources as possible from the guy without having to, give up what the commodity that the guy is going after, right? Which in most people, bro, if we're just talking about it like keeping it 100%, bro, guys just want to have sex for the most part, right? That's like guys. A lot of guys tend to cap and be like, "Oh yeah, I like you for you and your personality and all this." When really what they're trying to do is, bro, they're just trying to have sex, right? And a lot of people don't say that because it's not cool to say that, and girls aren't gonna appreciate it if you just put it out like that. So they'll tend to cap to try and eventually get that. And then so what's the guy game? Get sex without giving, with limiting the amount of resources that you use to expend it to get to that area, to get to that goal, right? And the girl game is to get as many resources as possible before they get to that goal, or even never get to that goal and continue to extract resources, right? That's why a lot of times, a lot of girls, like guys, will be chasing after a girl for fucking years, giving up attention, money, resources, whatever, and the girl will just always keep them on the hook, lead them along there because that's what they want, bro. That's their objective, right? And so, what do you guys think about that concept that guy game is to get sex without giving as many resources, and girl game is to get resources without giving up the sex?
What do you think, Eric?
All right. Shit, you just throwing me on the bus stage, and I respect it, bro. But I was gonna say, I think it's true, bro. I hate to say it. I sound like, dude, this is like cancel culture type shit we're talking about, but
bro. But here's the thing.
I can't give a fuck.
Hold up. I think Jonah just
dropped.
Jonah just dropped. I don't know what's going on. Oh, he's back.
Give him a second.
All right. Give him a second. Give him a second to load up. What were you saying, Eric?
I was just saying, like, I think it's like, obviously I think me and you, Leroy, we have general agreements on a lot of different topics. I think the severity of how much you agree with something is a little bit stronger than mine. But I will say this: I think girls have basic needs that need to be filled. One of those needs is to be taken care of. I think the best way to do that as a girl is to find someone of a certain economical status, or someone who facilitates your growth as a person, right? So, like, for example, I see the comment here. Yo, I love how you're popping off, NL. My wife is the breadwinner, but I bring the emotional care. So in this case, this girl, or NL's wife, right? They were looking for one or two things. They were either, I think, in my opinion, looking for someone who can facilitate their growth or provide the growth for them. And in this case, NL provides the emotional support that enables her to chase after her dreams, enables her to chase after the bag that she wanted to chase after. But there are some fundamental, I guess, like, situations that I see is common throughout women and common throughout men. So, for example, men, I'll tackle first. I think men on average want someone to take care of the house. I know it's like, it's an assumption, and not all men are like this, but I just see too many. I've met too many parents. I've met too many couples where it's usually the wife or the girlfriend that are cleaning up the house, taking care of the dishes. Obviously, it's a balance, and I think as these new generations are, like us as millennials / Zoomers, it's changing a little bit. But the general idea is that, like, men want sex. I agree. They also want someone to take care of the bullshit, mundane shit that they don't want to take care of, while they chase after the things that they want to take care of. Likewise, I think it works exactly the same way for women, but the priorities are different, right? So for women, they don't want to worry about the mundane shit, like working fucking 80-hour weeks, or like the annoying ass shit. They'd much rather have a better work-life balance, I think, on average, over men. And I think at that point, we're facilitating their needs by working and creating bread, and creating opportunities for them to do what they want to do. And in the same exact light. So I think it's just like, men have goals that they want to facilitate. A lot of women fill that need for them. Likewise, a lot of women have goals they want to facilitate. And it just so happens that men on average facilitate those goals for them. What do you think?
Go ahead, John.
So I think what both of you guys said, you guys like you would start off your statements and be like, not all, but on average. And I
Of
could,
course.
yeah, and I could definitely agree with not all, because in my personal experience, for example, what Eric was saying, but like, oh, men just want someone to take care of the house, take care of the mundane stuff. Honestly, dude, I love housework. Like, when I had my girlfriend over here, like, and the like house was a mess. Like, either whether it was her fault or not, whatever. I couldn't just sit there and just let that just sit. Like, I had to fucking like fucking organize everything and make like because I can't, bro. I can't live that way. And I honestly don't mind. And when it comes to the work life balance, like, fuck, I want to fucking have my me time. Obviously, I gotta work. We all gotta fucking make the bag. But I need that me time. I need that, dude. I sympathize with that 100%. Like, you know, that work life balance is so important to me, just because I have knowledge of my own mortality. Like, I know, like, I'm not gonna be here forever, dude. Let me enjoy my life. What am I gonna do? What am I gonna be doing? Busting my ass like more than I should. Obviously, you gotta bust your ass to a certain degree. You gotta make the money you need to make. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So are you agreeing or disagreeing with my point?
I'm not. I'm actually agreeing that I'm just giving the other side. You said not all men are like this, blah blah. And then
But you do agree that there's general consistencies between men and women, and like we have needs that need to be filled that women so happen to fill, and likewise with women
well,
versus men.
honestly, to that, I have to say I don't know. I just feel like I don't have enough information on that to. I don't. Yes, I have many male friends and I have many female friends that tell me their perspectives, but I feel like even that number is not enough to be like, yeah, on average men are like this. Yeah, on average women are like this.
There's no like
Yeah.
facts, right? I mean I could just go based on like studies or anecdotal experiences, but there's no one article that's going to prove this right. There's no one research paper that's going to prove it right. I think whenever it comes to analyzing information, you have to go over multiple sets of data sheets. You have to use statistics, know that there's a general idea behind it, but nothing is in absolutes, right? But I do think that like almost every parent I've met throughout my childhood, like I would say like over 90% of them, it was
Hmm.
always the fucking wife cleaning, bro. I just how what I very rarely met the male of the house who did all the household chores. It was almost always the wife. Even from a little kid up until now, I still feel like that holds true. And I guess that's like making an assumption because I like you, Jonah, you're different, right? You have different preferences, and this doesn't apply to all men or doesn't apply to all women. What do you think about that, Leroy? Do you agree that there's a general consistency, and do you think that it just so happens that based on how we were, just based on genetics and like who we are as people, we actually grow with another person of the opposite sex?
I think that we value different things, and so because we value different things, the other the other sex can help us in achieve those things that we value. I think what you were saying is very accurate in that men what men want from women is different than what women want from men. And
Agreed.
so we're able to trade with each other and provide that value to each other, right? Um let's look at some of these comments here. Just to briefly touch up on NL's comment, my wife is the breadwinner, but I bring the emotional care. My friend, I'm happy that that works for you, brother. Um, that could never be me because that doesn't work for most people because of the gender dynamics that we talked about. How like, you know, bro, like not even just saying it like on an average probability, women want to be with a guy that they look up to. I think that most women want to be with a guy that they don't see as their equal, but they see as someone, for lack of a better word, is superior to them in terms of, of course, not as, value as a human. Everyone human is equal in that sense. What I'm talking about is superior to them in terms of like where they are in life, what goals they're trying to achieve, someone that they can look up to as a leader. I think that's what most women want, right, in their relationships. And so I think that you know if your wife is the breadwinner, that probably, maybe that works for you guys. But I think as a general perspective, it probably doesn't work for most people, right? So I'm happy it works for you, bro, but I wouldn't recommend that sort of thing to, most people. Jonathan, I don't know. What's up, Jonathan Pineda? How
Yo,
you
what's
doing,
up,
brother?
boy? It's one of the boys, bro.
There you
Looking
go.
at
Let's read this big comment he left here. In today's society, sex sells. Gender is no longer only men and women. Everyone wants money. The funny thing is that when either a male/female find using their birth sex is beneficial, there is no equality. I'm not really sure I understand your comment too much, but I think that generally you're talking about that. I agree that in today's society, sex sells 100%. Look at OnlyFans. I mean, OnlyFans is the perfect fucking proof of that, right? Women out here making bank just showing their feet on the internet, right? And that goes into the gender dynamics that we're talking about, right? And then we can touch on a little bit more about, bro. A girl can just straight up take pictures of her feet, post it online, and there's gonna be 1,000 guys lining up ready to fucking donate to the Cash App. Does that make any fucking sense to you?
Yo, can we highlight something though about this
Yeah.
comment? Not to interrupt you, bro, but I'm just gonna make this one little point and you dive back in, okay? So Jonathan's sentence, right? In today's society, sex sells. I think it's not that sex sells. I think it's in today's society, sex sells to men. I think that's what we have to make the clarification for. And like obviously there's different genders, there's LGBT. Oh yeah, whatever. But I'm just saying in a generality, like women, like OnlyFans, is sold predominantly to males. It is not sold predominantly to a 50-50. It's because sex sells to men. That's my only little caveat to that. But go ahead, Leroy.
Everyone wants money. Of course, I agree with that. Everyone wants money. That's just plainly obvious. And women are highly advantaged in that they can fucking post their feet and get hella bread. A guy, if I posted my feet, I would not get a fucking dollar, right? But suddenly, if I was a female, I would make money off that, right? So that just goes to show you the difference in thinking, bro. And what do you? Let's touch on that real quick, bro, because that's super interesting to me, right? How? Why would a guy, right? Why would girls don't pay for that? Why don't girls pay for that, right? Because it's very easy for girls to get guys. Is that facts or no? What do you guys think?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, repeat that, please, bro.
It's very easy for girls to get guys. Yes or no?
I'm gonna say yes.
Yeah.
Like assuming they want the fucking guy, they
Right.
can get it. Like,
That's the question.
If we're assuming,
well-
let's make a little more of an assumption. If like let's scale up. I know we hate using numbers to define people.
Well, hold on. But not to get like too deep into it, just as a general idea, is it easier for a girl to get a guy than for a guy to get a girl?
I'm gonna say
I think
yes,
if you're
and
comparing them
I
at
have
the
an
same
explanation
level,
for it,
right?
too.
If the girl's a 5 out of 10 in physical looks, for example, let's say we're using Tinder as an example. If a girl is 5 out of 10 physical looks and the guy is 5 out of 10 physical looks, the girl is going to get way more traction.
Okay, right. So it's easier for girls to get. I agree, right? It's easier for girls to get guys, right?
Uh-huh.
So given that in mind, right? Because as a girl, you have 100x the opportunity to get a guy, whereas as a guy, you have almost no opportunity depending on who you are, right? And what you're doing with your life and all the things that women want, right? Which we're going to talk about what women want. Not just being a leader, but there's other traits and qualities. Bro, men tend to operate from what is known as a scarcity mindset. And that's why a lot of these things happen, right? Why would a guy pay fucking bread to see the pictures of a girl's feet if he has 3 or 4 girls lined up that he could call up and they can come over to the crib and we can hang out, right? But it's not the case that's not the case. So the guys that are paying for a girl's feet, bro, are the guys who are operating from the scarcity mindset of I don't have any girls, therefore I want to, I'm gonna pay for this. I'm willing to pay for this commodity, and girls are willing to sell that, right? Likewise, like any girl is not gonna go and pay to see a guy's feet when they could literally go and call. They could post on their Instagram right now on their story. Hey, hit me up. I'm free tonight. DTF. Who's down for something like that, bro? 1,000 guys will be in their DMs in 5 minutes. Yes or no?
They
Right.
don't even have to go that far, bro. They could just pull up on Tinder or whatever and take a look at their thousands upon thousands of matches, bro.
Even a better example, bro. A girl will walk into a club, right, and literally yell in a club full of men, right, and be like, "Hey, I'm DTF. Who's down for that?"
Dude, you have guys
Out of
bro.
100 guys, 95 of them
Withstand,
will be down for that, right? Out of 100 guys, 95 of them will be down for that.
Yo,
If a guy did that-
can I tell an anecdotal story, bro?
Hold on,
Real quick.
let me finish the point. If
Yeah,
a
go
guy
ahead.
did that, how many girls would be lining up for that? They'd fucking laugh at him, and he'd be the absolute clown of the festival, right?
The whole shit will go quiet.
So that's just how we like operating from that scarcity mindset. That's why shit like this happens, bro. So girls have a ton of advantages when it comes to that sort of stuff. Go ahead, Eric. Give your anecdotal story, bro.
Yeah, unless you're a king. There's a story I have, bro, of I had one of my friends and I go to like a club, pretty much like a dance place, like a club, whatever you want to call it, right? And he was single and I was in a relationship, so I was pretty much like the wingman slash like I'm just chilling there type shit. But I'm observing all of this in real time, and it so happened that he was hitting on this girl, right? And they were meshing really well. But part of the game is these days where if the girl is smart, which she's playing into that mindset you're describing, right? She has a whole bunch of possible selection, right? Like let's say my friend and her would flirt for like 20 minutes straight, that he bought her a drink. She'll be like, yo, I'll be right back, let's touch base later. And then as the guy, you're like, well, fuck, it's early in the night, it's like 10 p.m. Like the girls these days that I've seen, they're not instantly gonna stop at 10 p.m., bro. They got till 2 a.m. to make any final decisions on who they're gonna talk to, who they're gonna go home with. And so what I would see in real time is this girl would walk away and then talk to another dude, like straight up, like not even like more than 20 feet away. And like she'll just sit down, she'll get a drink, and then the guys will like the game it is, the guys will come up, talk their shit, she'll entertain it, and then it'll keep going back and forth to where like eventually my boy got to talk to her again. They talked for a little bit more, they danced a little bit, got a little touchy, but eventually she had to go away and she had to operate again. And I think that's perfectly towards your point where like if you're a smart girl and you're just looking for a one night stand, why not check out all the options instead of just locking down on the first one?
100%, bro. Because you have infinite options, therefore you're less likely to commit to one option, and that's why these girls have 100 guys in their DMs. Why would they reply to you? They post a picture, right, in a bikini, bro. Yeah. They got 50 guys in the comments or in the DMs talking about them, liking their pictures and shit, giving them the. Why do they do that? Because they get the validation and the attention. That's the resource, again, guy game versus girl game, that they're trying to extract from you. So every time you like the picture and you give a comment, you're like, oh, you're so cute, you're so beautiful, whatever. These fucking dudes in the comments, right? That's exactly what they want. But are you? So you're giving away? Are you getting anything in return for that? No, you're not getting shit, bro. She's not gonna hit you up. There's 100 guys that are hitting her up. Why would she respond to you? You know what I'm saying? That's why guys get ghosted a lot in fucking messages and shit like that. Girls never reply and shit like that because they're not interested. They're only gonna reply to you if they're interested in you. And likewise, this from personal experience, it's very strange as a guy and it's very obvious when a girl likes you because she's attacking you like you're a fucking gazelle and she's the lion trying to chase after you. You know what I mean? So I've experienced that. And so that's why I'm saying that, because it's weird, right? You're like, oh shit. So imagine that feeling, but 100x every day. Crazy. That's why like, these things occur. And that's why the guy game versus girl game is very prevalent, right? So the question is, how do we as males, take advantage of all of our resources and use them properly to not fucking lose in this battle? Because men tend to lose the battle, right? So what do you guys think about all that shit? Oh, by the way, we have hella comments. Let's see what's going on here. Let's answer a couple more questions.
Wait, Jonah, did you get your thought on this topic?
So,
go ahead, Jonah.
By the way, I love the topic, but I was so we're talking about right in the beginning. We're saying like, so women, they could fuck, like you guys said, they go on Instagram, they could put up,
they have hella options,
or they could just go out in the middle of the club. They could go out in the middle of the club, it's like, yo, I'm down to fuck. Raise your hand. Whoever raises their hand first, it's them. Yes, but and I agree with that. Yes, if that happened, that would happen. But I think the reason it doesn't happen is just because males, and this is actually proven, that males are more visually they're more visually let's say oriented, while females they have other senses that they have stronger sense of like smell.
You're talking touch. About what they're more attracted to?
Exactly. So when we're in the club setting and it's all singles, all right, all single people, whatever, we're having a good time. The males, they see what they like. They're like, damn, fat ass. Damn, she has nice little lips. Damn, she's got some nice legs. Yo, whatever. And the women, they may be thinking the same thing, bro. Oh, damn, this guy's muscular. Oh, shit, this guy, I like the way he talks. I like the way he moves. I like the way he dresses. Of course, they have that, but we jump on that visual thing. For them, no. They like you said, they've got options. Like, he looks good, but damn, he looks good too. So the thing is, and this is something that I've talked to with a lot of females, that what they're most attracted to, of course, they're attracted to the visual, of course, but what they're most attracted to is on the emotional scale, how do they make the woman feel? Like, do they make the woman feel nice, like appreciated, like special? Like that's what girls are. That's what really like. Damn. Okay, I'm interested in that one. Okay, I'm gonna reply to this guy's text. You know,
Facts, bro.
I think that's what makes a difference.
They're creatures of emotion, bro. They operate in that, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a double-edged sword because they could be slaves to their emotions. That's why a lot of girls tend to make bad decisions, when it comes to mate selection in their early youth, because they're going after the dudes that make them feel certain type of things, as opposed to maybe the guys that would be better for them, right? And that's why you hear the thing of like nice guys finish last. Well, the nice guy says nice things or whatever. The other guy is a fucking dick to her, but she's gonna remember that feeling and she's gonna be attracted to the drama and shit like that. And so therefore she'll chase that. That's why a lot of girls are dating these like drug dealers and fucking like criminals and shit like that, because they're addicted to that feeling of like that emotional stimulation of like excitement and what's going on and all this shit. So anyway, let's go ahead and touch up on the comments. Let's see. NL replied to us, there's definitely nothing wrong with that, Leroy. I think we all got different perspectives on the role we should play in relationships. My case, definitely not common. I do most of the chores and care at home. Exactly, NL. Your case is definitely not common, my friend. And if it works for you, brother, I'm happy for you. No worries at all. Let's see. Jonathan Pineda with all guys would be down unless you're a king. There's actually facts to that, bro. Like, actually, a lot of facts to that. You know what I'm saying? It depends, because if you're a king, right? I don't like girls call themselves queen and slayer and all this fucking
when you get to let me just clarify, when you get to the point where you have options just like these girls do.
Exactly. So
whether it's through a fitness point of view, whether it's through financial wealth, where it's through clarity, and
that's what we mean when we say king, right? Like, and I don't like to use the word king, right? I don't like to. That's like to me, that's like female shit that they fucking do to bring themselves up and stuff like that. Like, to me, guys, it's like, bro, I'm gonna just give it to you straight. Like, dog, you gotta improve your situation, whatever. I'm not gonna call you a king if you're not a fucking king, right? I think that's how guys operate.
I think we know who the king is here.
It's supposed to be motivational, bro. It's like hyping you up. Yo, like, go get it, king.
Nah. I don't like. We could hype each other up, and we could be 100% straight with each other. That's the thing. Men tend to be more straight with each other. We don't tend to fucking bullshit around. And women tend to be. They talk to each other more subliminally. Like, they're not as one-to-one confrontational as men tend to be. And that, of course, goes back to our biology, where we're less agreeable and stuff like that. So it all ties back into the biology. And that's why men and women are not equal, because we're different, because it all ties up into our biology. So like, if I think Eric is tripping about something, I'm gonna just straight up tell him, yo, Eric, that's stupid what you just said, bro. Nah. As opposed to like I even see it with my with my girlfriend and her friends. They're hesitant to be confrontational with each other. They're like, oh, she's being stupid, but I'm not going to tell her that. I'm going to say it in a different way, so it's a little bit nicer. It comes off sounding nicer, because they care about the way that things are said.
Women want hype men, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever seen a girl like I don't know if she has a relationship or not. It's not relative, but have you ever seen a girl like who has like 600 followers? She posts a post on like Instagram, whether it's like her like in a selfie or like a full outfit. How many girls do you see comment that are like, oh my gosh, you're a queen, you look gorgeous?
Like,
all of their friends, bro. Yeah.
Now relate that to guys, right? Like, I'll see my boys post up pictures, and most of my boys aren't like, yo, you looking fresh, bro.
Yeah,
like, shit. Nah, we'll give a little like flame emoji.
Yeah, it'll be like a little clown. You'll clown him a little bit. You'll clown him a little bit, bro. Like,
yeah.
Dog, look at for example, like these in today's society, bro, like how these swimsuit models are actually these like obese women, bro.
As a guy, that's no top.
But it ties into what I'm saying, because they're gonna be like, yes, queen, slay, you're confident in your body, whatever. Whereas guys, if it's an obese dude in the thing, we're gonna clown him. We're gonna be like, yo, what the fuck? Look at this guy. You know what I'm saying?
Have a little self-respect, bro. Treat yourself well, bro. Like, you're obviously something's not right. Like, if you're fucking 300 pounds and you're fucking posting up, bro, I'm gonna be like, yo, what happened, bro?
I'm not gonna be like, yeah, bro, you're confident in your body. I'll be like, bro, what the fuck are you doing?
Focus up a little bit, bro. Get back on track.
100%. So the way that we communicate is different, right?
100%.
So All right, man. Let's reel it back into what we were talking about. I appreciate all the comments, guys. This has been an extremely Jonathan, with the way I see it, men's value in society is based on their wealth and status. Women's value in society is based on their physical/reputation. Bro, that is big facts. And why is that? And that's why it even demonstrates, even in behavior, it manifests. Look at a girl's Instagram. A lot of times, a girl's Instagram, they'll have hella more followers than guys typically.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll just be posting bikini pictures and showing off their ass and shit like that. And they'll get hella likes and all their stuff, right? That's how they market themselves. How does a guy market himself? He'll be posting his cars, his whip, his fucking crib, his watches and shit like that, showing his like social circles, showing status, wealth. Well, as a girl's gonna market herself based on her physical looks, right? And that even ties into what we were talking about earlier about the least happy demographic of women, which is the unmarried, no kids, 40-year-old, because that's when their physical attractiveness and stuff tends to be at rock bottom, and they're no longer getting that same validation and stimulation that they were from guys in the past, right? So that all ties in, bro. Yo, hey, this episode's been lit, bro. Yo, I fucking love this shit, dude.
Dude, we've been hitting some point. I feel like we're missing some points still, bro.
There's just so much to talk about, bro.
I know.
But I think we've covered a ton of stuff, bro. Is there anything else you guys want to mention specifically when it comes to this? I feel like we've covered a shit ton. What do you guys think?
I think we've covered a lot. Indeed. I mean, Eric, it seems like you're the one who feels like there's something we might be missing. What's in your mind, bro? Please.
Yeah. So, I mean, shit, bro. Fuck. All right. So, I think one thing we haven't really talked about that I would like to dive into a little bit. I know we're running, dude, we're already past an hour and a half. We're popping off here. But just something that I want to get your opinion on and hear what you guys got to say is when are we going to take note of the idea that not only are men and women doing this, right? Like, so for example, women have been shown more recently to be more career oriented, right? They're chasing after the bag just like men are, right? When are we going to realize that that is not inherently good?
Why is that not inherently good?
Give us your opinion as to why it's not.
All right, I'm going to be straight the fuck up, bro. We had a whole episode on this last episode about birth rates. I think that plays a huge part into it, right? Like, if we have more women who are opting into these career-oriented paths, which I 100% support, right, on a baseline, right? Like, whatever you want to do in life, I support. I don't give a fuck. But the idea is over a long period of time, it's going to show that it's not beneficial for us as a society. And my opinion on that is if we have less people having kids, population is going down. Look, like you just pulled up a great article earlier. I haven't read the full gist of it because I was at the bathroom, but I saw that the most likely the most unhappy person in the US currently is like someone in their 40s who's a woman who is career oriented, who hasn't had kids, who doesn't have a relationship pretty much. And isn't that sort of proving it that, like, in a way, this is a small example size and this doesn't account for everyone, but women sort of want that thing. They want that, but they're not being pushed towards it because it's, to me, from the outside in, as a male, I can't speak on the female perspective. It almost seems like people are pushing out the idea of being like a stay-at-home mother, and they're like, hey, you could do more than that. You don't have to settle for that. Like, you could be a badass, you could be a queen, you could be a goddess, whatever the fuck. But is that inherently good for us as humans?
Is it good? Is it good for humans, and is it good for women? I 100% agree with you. So that's my take. I 100% agree with everything.
What about you, Jonah? I know you have a little bit different opinion than us.
Yeah, I definitely do. I think what's good for humans. I mean, here's the thing, man. I definitely see the world differently. I don't really see the world in like goods and bads. I am aware that I have my own understanding of what's good to me, what's bad to me, and that goes for everyone, right? And but honestly, I think it's a good thing to like, and I don't think they're being pushed into it. I don't think women are being pushed into, oh, do something else. You know, it's like, no, do what you fucking want, and they're doing what they want, and I think that's good because at the end of the day, just like I said previously, I'm aware of my own mortality, just like everyone else is. These women are, dude. Why are you gonna spend your fucking life here doing some shit you don't want to fucking do, even if it's not good for someone else? You know, fucking do what you need to do and check out just like everyone else is gonna check out. So that's how I see it. I don't think it's a bad thing. fuck it.
If
If birth rates go down, I don't care. Fuck it.
Oh well, there's definitely there's lasting repercussions if birth rates continue to go down dramatically. Just like the environmental issue with whole like global warming, there's going to be long-term effects just like that. So we should be caring about that, obviously, but that's not the point of this conversation. I will say this though, and then Leroy can go ahead and add his 2 thoughts. I think if we're purely thinking about it from like what's been promoted recently, and I only could see it like how like Facebook and Instagram and all that bullshit, they cater towards your like your advertisement and your point of view. What I do see, whether it's from like friends of mine that are girls or my ex or my current girl, like whatever it is, like from past experiences, it almost seems like girls are just hyping each other up to do these things that aren't childbirth and being a caretaker. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just think that's the wave of the current system right now. I think it's more about promoting diversity, promoting like, yo, if you want to be a badass girl, go. If you want to work in the workforce, and I think that's great, right? But in terms of like result over a period of time, I think it's not going to be great in terms of like actually like building as a society, like growing at, because remember, the economy is just a scale of how many people we have. If we really think about it, the more people you have in the workforce, the greater your economy is going to be. And I think if we're having less children, less people in the workforce, the economy is going to go down.
100%. There's a bunch of downstream effects to decrease birth rates. I mean, Elon talks about it all the time.
Let's pull up the chats real quick.
All right, let's close it out here. Pulling up a couple of chats,
and then we'll close it out.
Let's see what. Here we go. Gonna pull up another Jonathan's comment. Society is ever evolving. We're the new now, the new generation. When all the boomers are dead 20 years from now, new leaders with the values that we have as millennials will come. Yeah, bro. And I don't know if that's such a good thing, bro. Like, honestly, I think our generation is pretty garbage for the most part in terms of like the values that we hold. Like, I don't, I 100% am not, I wouldn't say 100%, but I'm sort of cynical towards the outlook of our generation. Let's keep it going.
Just to add to that comment, I think a lot of our generation, while I think we bring a lot of new perspectives, I think we've suffered from instant gratification and short-sightedness when it comes to like results. So I do think that that's the way we're leaning. Like, I feel like with social media being prevalent, even though social media is impacting everyone, not just our generation, for us, like, I feel like most of us are struggling with that idea. I personally struggle with it, of like looking 10 years down the line, looking 20 years down the line, and trying to plan out for that, where I think previous generations have had to do that, where we haven't had to do it. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Sounds good.
Next comment.
Talk about, here we go. When we're gone, then the world will evolve once again, following with the new ideals of the new generation that are to come. That's exactly how it is, Jonah. And I think that's why, to close it out, I'm going to pull up an image here that we talk about often on the podcast, and we'll give a little comment. It's going to tie into this. Have you seen Chile? If you want, we have an episode. See, the government cabinet is consisted of women. Yeah, so I don't know about that. I have to do some more research, brother. I'm not, educated enough on Chile's government structure and stuff like that. So that, I think we'd have to do a little bit more research about that. And finally, here we go. Birth rates are very important. If more people are not born, we'll take care of the elderly and say the next 100 years that will snowball into eventual human collapse. 100%, bro. And that's why downstream effects of Eric disconnected. That's why downstream effects of these decisions matter, bro. So let's get Eric back in here.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I took your spot, bro. I'm in the middle now,
okay,
bro.
I can reorder it, bro. There you go. Here we go. All right. So, hey, everybody. Hey, before we leave, I'm gonna pull up a little thing right here for. I want to get Jonah's opinion on it. Before we go, it's a nice little. This is something that we talk about often. Bear with me 1 second, guys. Here we go. I found it. All right, Jonah. I'm gonna pull this up on the stream here, bro. Give me your opinion.
All right.
Let's see what you think.
All right. Oh, I've seen this before. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times.
What do you think about this, bro? Is this true? And where do you think we are, as especially our generation? Where do you think we are? And it ties into the comment on this scale here.
So honestly, I think I'm gonna answer your question backwards. So the tail end of your question, I think we're in the beginning of the hard times. I think we're starting to feel that. I think especially on the military context, I think it's going to expand more than just Ukraine in the next coming years. That's just me. I hope not, because that's obviously a bad thing. It's going to cause a lot of death. But we've seen the cycle before. If you study history, we've seen the cycle before, and it's scary. But what do I think of this image? I think it's a very easy puzzle piece to fit into many situations. Whether that's to say, oh, this is very accurate or not, I can't say. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I fully buy into the image. Is basically what I'm trying to say.
So,
Like what it's trying to say.
What point do you disagree with then?
That okay. So hard times create strong men. Who are the strong men you're talking about? Are you talking about the people who are making the decisions? Are you talking about everyone?
So,
You know, like
I think a generality, right? So like let's take it back to like World War II, right? So that was a hard time, right? You had to enlist in the military, you had to fight on a global war. When those soldiers come back home, they are hard men, bro. They went through some hard ass shit.
Well, if we talk about the greatest generation, the Americans who went out and fought the Nazis in Europe, those were strong men. Like, those were hard times. You know, like Europe was in fire, engulfed in flames in a span of 40 years. The continent saw, 2 world wars. Those sorts of times created what I would consider to be the strong man, who would go over there and fucking literally storm the beaches of Normandy, sacrifice themselves, and did all that to liberate the continent and the world from the fucking Nazis, right? So that's what I would consider to be strong men, for example, and hard times creating them.
Okay. I mean, I definitely see your point. And then if you go down that line, strong men create good times. Like, I mean, at least speaking on NATO countries, we've definitely had a better. I mean, the countries in the European side, they were war torn, but since the U.S. benefited financially, we lent them a lot of money so they could rebuild. So I could see that, good times, strong men creating the good times. But of course, they were the victors of that conflict, thank goodness. And we were capable of creating these good times because of the spoils of our victory.
So, John, let's give you a different example. Maybe this will better phrase it for us. Let's not use the war example. Let's use like immigration, right? Leroy and I were talking about the previous episode, and Leroy's family is from Cuba, and his parents had to come over and make the best out of a situation where it was very hard, right? Like they're coming, what was it, like $200 in their account?
I don't know the exact. It was a very low amount.
Whether it's not relevant, right? Like they had nothing. They came there. They had to struggle, working 2 to 3 jobs. They had to put in the work. Those are hard times, bro. But now let's look to the next generation. They had kids, and they are fortunate enough to be in a situation where they're in the good time moment. Like in terms of like they don't have to deal with the same financial issues they had to deal with, the poverty of living in Cuba itself, the conditions. We are not I'm not trying to target Leroy specifically because this applies for a lot of different people. But we are not living in the same conditions. Therefore, we are not as hardened as a person.
100%. I agree with that 1,000,000%, bro. Like even with using the World War II example, the peace and prosperity that perpetuated throughout the entire world after that created, there's a lot of economic and social revolutions that came from that, right? And if we look about today, the hardships that people go through today have nothing to do and are nowhere near the scale of the hardships that people were going through back then. Today we bitch about the dumbest things like, oh, there's traffic and there's fucking this, I didn't get, they charged me an extra $1 on my whatever. Like we get worked up about things because we don't have the same strength of mental and physical that they did back then, where they were putting up with real hardships
right now.
Huh?
Guess who's getting hard as fuck?
What are you talking
Besides the netbeards looking at all the OnlyFans, besides them, you know who's getting hard as fuck? Fucking Ukrainians, bro. They are actually getting hard as fuck. You know what? I am excited to see what Ukraine has in the next like 20, 30 years of like growth, because they are going through some rough ass shit. And that is the hard time I think that this post tries to describe as. It's not always war, but it's war is definitely one of the hardest times to be in, right?
I mean, the very images used on this is war. You've got people, we've got soldiers in armor, we've got cities being burnt to the ground.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it could be not just war. It could be pandemic. It could be, it could be a famine. Like the Irish when they went through the famine and they killed a bunch of their population. It's just hard times create strong men. That is just because for you to survive and perpetuate the species and your family and for you to live, you must be willing to put up with conditions that suck, and they're going to strengthen you in order for you to, go on to the next generation. Whereas now, bro, and that's why I was commenting about our generation, millennials and Gen Z and all this stuff, bro. Like for the most part, the things that we bitch about and moan about and complain are just fuck. Like if we have a little bit of perspective, I told Eric this, the other day on a different stream, bro. There's people that walk 7 miles a day to just collect water for their family to drink, and yet we're out here bitching about like, oh, it's a little cold in my house today, like, oh, my AC broke, my AC broke. I don't have, they were out of chocolate flavor ice cream at the store today.
I was like, oh, fuck, I have to go get it now.
Shit, I gotta get off my computer chair.
I gotta go outside. Turn the
I gotta
car
get the
up,
sun
warm
to
it
hit
up.
my face. Oh shit, bro.
Fuck.
So that's just, that's why I think this is a great image, bro. This really describes a lot of stuff. So hey, go ahead, Jonah. Close this out.
One last thing, because NL said something in the chat that actually I was thinking about as you're talking about the hard times, strong times or hard times make PTSD victims, and that's 100% true. Like we get a lot of people who come out fucked up in the head, and they just don't get the treatment that they need to like get back into normal civilian life as well. So I don't know. I just thought that was a good point as well.
That's a good point, and I really appreciate that, brother. And, hey, mental health is very important, and so that's why we have many tools at our disposal that we can use to combat this that we didn't have back then. So yeah, man. Hey guys, this has been a great podcast. This episode has been freaking. I would say this is like the best episode we've had, bro. This has been lit, bro.
Is it because of us or because of Jonathan coming on, Jonah? Like who knows?
Like the chat has been engaged. This has all been.
We had some.
Maybe it's the chat. Yo, everyone came in today. Oscar, NL, Jonathan, bro. All you guys been amazing, bro. Thanks for all the information, all the comments. Shit,
sure,
bro. Episode 10's been a banger, bro. Any closing thoughts? Anything you guys want to promote? Jonah, you go ahead and go first. Anything you want to say?
First of all, thank you so much for having me on. I know you guys are just starting now, and it could be a big risk bringing some random dude on, but I thank you. And also, just one last thing, if I had to play anything, I got a YouTube YouTube channel called Jonah Swift with a space in the middle, and I don't post it regularly, but I just may start posting soon, some more. So.
Of course, bro.
All right, brother. Really appreciate it. Eric has been fucking lit, dude.
As always, bro. Until next episode.
Until the next one, guys. Episode 10 is in the books. Look out for some clips and stuff that I'll be posting on social media. Really appreciate it, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great one.
Peace out.